This is the page from We Three that took a couple of weeks to work out. To some extent it's about a relationship with technology and war and a relationship with animals and each other. The human characters were hardly in it. You know, we actually decided that we would try and have as few faces in it as possible. A bit like the Tom and Jerry cartoons where you would always just see the legs and feet. We had a number of other ideas about storytelling and kind of page construction and panel layout that we hoped would be kind of new and that would suggest the action playing out in a way that we wouldn't normally perceive it. The idea of trying to come up with something that was aesthetically different but also, like, more importantly, that actually worked differently in the way the visual narrative was presented. We hoped that that would also give this feeling that maybe this was kind of the way it would work for instance, a cat or a dog. The CCTV sequence was half a dozen pages of little frames like TV screens in a high security building where the animals are escaping from, and the whole sequence is told mostly wordlessly, just, you know, from multiple cameras. It was so difficult to fine-tune it when I was trying to draw all those panels or redraw them all in different orders, you know, on separate bits of paper, that I ended up cutting them up. I worked out this sequence of 100 and however many individual drawings. Yeah, I mean, I have the geography of the building, or the relevant parts of the building in my mind, and so I drew each of the sequences from the imaginary viewpoint of the cameras that I'd installed in those parts of the building. I sound absolutely mad. You go to extraordinary lengths sometimes to try and make complicated things kind of simple and understandable, whether that's some kind of, if you're trying to sell some sort of emotional part of the story, or if it's just in terms of building up an atmosphere or a level of detail that helps make an environment believable. You do a lot of thinking, you know, in order that the reader doesn't have to do any. In this page from Jupiter's Legacy, there's this bad guy here who has got immense power and he's just blasted everybody away from him. And this character, Walter, comes down. He can control people's minds to the point where he can put them into an environment of his choosing. What he's actually doing is creating a cell or creating a little world constructed from his thoughts. It's a fabrication. And my process is sketching out roughly in blue and then adding more detail and then going in with a black line. So what I ended up doing was a kind of cutaway type thing where you have a cube, like a prison cell, and as we go in from the front to the back, we actually go through the creative process of producing this image so that it echoes the creative process of him fabricating this little cell to trap the bad guy. So this is me doing the finished line work on my blue underdrawing. This is where I'm making the decision about which, you know, where to make the line work slightly simpler and where to add a little bit more detail. Because they can be exaggerated characters or archetypal characters, I think they lend themselves quite well to being used as just vehicles for getting an idea across, you know. I heard that Superman sells better in times of economic depression, and Batman sells better in boom times. One of the theories, I think, is that when things are bad, people are looking for a god figure or a father figure, you know, or a help from above kind of thing, somebody to come in and fix things. Whereas like in the 80s, for instance, when everyone was making money and people felt kind of powerful and self-assured, Batman seems to fit the kind of the zeitgeist better. Batman's a self-made man.
And what I can do is add porridge. Do it with water, and then I add my milk in later.
If you don't mind.
No, not a problem.
Cheers. I don't know whether or not it's a good industry to grow old in. On the one hand, I suppose you can slowly keep getting better at what you do in a way that you can't if you're a footballer. But then you've got the problem of falling out of fashion, just not really being in step anymore. And there's an element of that in comics. Brilliant, somebody's out there in silver hot pants. So when I'm doing this, although it looks like I'm only tracing over it, I'm actually making little modifications. I'm just kind of fine-tuning it because the blue lines are going to get stripped out. So all that's going to be left are the marks I'm making just now. Mostly I quite like working late. I usually get slightly more done at night time. You know, sometimes like if I'm working late at night, I can be thumbnailing or doing page layouts or whatever, and I can be potting around with the same problem and not being able to solve it for ages. But when I'm doing the finished line work like this, like because all the decision making's been made, it's just adding detail and texture and extra layers of information and making things clearer, and you know, it's really fairly kind of not quite automatic, but it doesn't require a great deal of thought. It just needs a wee bit of concentration. Almost every day I get to a point where the drawing goes really quickly and just really flows, and it happens more often at night time than during the day. Sometimes I go out for a walk, and even when you're trying not to think about the problem you're wrestling with or the piece of work that you've left behind that you're about to go back to, the experiences you're getting while you're walking around end up influencing, like you're drawing a futuristic city, and rather than just Googling futuristic looking things, sometimes it's good to just go out and walk around and see what's actually out there, and what's actually out there is like funny looking street cleaning vehicles that look like bugs, and you know, like bin lorries and stuff. The world I live in some ways it's a far cry from drawing a city in some future world, but at the same time, quite apart from the fact that Glasgow's a pretty colourful place to live, there's certain things that are kind of universal. The way people interact with each other, you know, the way people act in the morning commute when everybody's trying to get to work, and the way they're acting at the end of the night. These things are kind of universal. Everything about the world around me in my life is something that I can draw on. If I get a few hours sleep, then often what I do is I'll get up and do some more work and go and get a shower in Central Station, and then work for another few hours during the day, and then go home kind of like late afternoon or dinner time. It's funny because I used to look at the showers in the stations and think, what kind of people use the showers in Central Station? And now I know. This is a semi-supine position. You stand against a wall upright and you measure the space between the back of your head and the wall. That's the number of books you need under your head. Normally it's 3 Akiras. There's 6 Akira books and they're all slightly different thicknesses, so for me I've got to pick the right 3. For years I worked in the house. I had a studio in the house, and it was nice and it was really convenient. It was really convenient to be able to get out of your bed and make a pot of coffee. And then about 8 years ago or so, I rented a desk just for a couple of months, and as soon as I got to the studio, my wife just started packing up my stuff. She couldn't believe how good it was to get rid of me. I'm incredibly messy. I mean, like, this is the tidiest I've ever kept my workspace, and it's only because I'm sharing a room with 2 other people. Nearly there, yeah. This is me just finishing off the detail in the cityscape in the background. Ideally, you want to be a couple of months ahead, but I rarely am. Only ever at the start of a project. Ah, well, that's me. Oh.
Finished.
Yeah. It's 4:30. And I'm gonna go to bed. Sleeping bag here. Good night. See you in the morning. Yeah, I slept well. It was quite a short sleep, but comics aren't the best paid of the creative industries. I could make more money getting into the games industry, or magazine illustration, or do storyboarding, or whatever. It doesn't matter how high up you are in the storyboarding game or the computer games character design department or whatever. The fact is, you're a tiny cog in a huge machine rather than being one of only a couple of cogs, and that appeals to me more. And what you're doing in a comic is you're putting something down that doesn't really work in a film, doesn't really work in prose. The more I understand about how they work, the more I realise like how unique they are.